Hi everyone, my name is Tanya and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I am going to share one of my favorite ways to use embossing powders. I call it encaustic embossing. Now I really love the look of encaustic art, which is done with wax, and it's a beautiful way to get layered effects and use them in mixed media. And I thought to myself that why can't I use that with embossing powders? So I gave it a go. This is something that I've been doing for a couple of years now, and I absolutely love the effect that you can get. So I've got a selection of embossing powders here. I've got some primary embossing powders here. So these are translucent embossing powders. So what that means is that the powders, when embossed on a darker surface, they look more dark. So this is the same embossing powder. I'm just wondering if I can catch that in the light. So this is Fuchsia Fusion primary embossing powder, and I've embossed it on white and embossed it on black. And as you can see that it's translucent. So if you go on the Wow Embossing Powder information website, it gives you all the information about which embossing powders are translucent. But I can tell you for sure that everything that's in the primary range is translucent. And that's what's best for this technique. I mean, you can use any embossing powder that you've got. But with opaque embossing powders, which is this is another Wow embossing powder. This is fluorescent tickled pink. So as you can see, it looks the same no matter what color cardstock you use underneath. You can use opaque embossing powders as well with this technique, but you would get slightly more milkier and marbly kind of effects because that's the white core of the embossing powder coming up. So I've got some of my primary embossing powders here. I've got some metallics here. I've got a gold, a copper and a silver just for variety. I've got some of the color blends here, the translucent ones, and I've got some of the new Wow glints, which I'm really looking forward to using today. And I've also got some ultra highs, some gold rich ultra high and silver ultra high here, just for effects. And I've got some melted here to help with the flow of the embossing powders. You'll see what I mean in a few minutes. And I've also got an iron. So this is a non-steam iron. Oh, you can see my camera setup there. So this is a non-steam iron, and this is what you would use to pour your embossing powders on, and they would melt. I tried using this technique with an encaustic iron, but an encaustic iron doesn't get as hot, unfortunately. I still use my encaustic iron for encaustic wax works, but for embossing powder, which melt at a higher point than wax, I would recommend using an iron which you can just dedicate to using for crafts. So I mean, I've cleaned it and everything, but still you wouldn't want melted embossing powder on your lovely clothes. But anyway, and I've also got some kitchen roll here with me, and I've got my heat gun, I've got some papers, and I'll move these things out of the way and then we can get on with the demonstration. So now I've got my iron ready, and I've opened up some of my jars of embossing powders. I've chosen Fuchsia Fusion, I've chosen Primary Blue Topaz, and here I've got Mayan Glints embossing powder, and I've got some Silver Ultra High open here as well. So I've got these open already because I'm holding my iron upside down and I don't want to be fiddling about with the caps when I am pouring my embossing powder. So this iron is set at maximum, and it's really hot right now, so I would highly recommend that you be really careful when you're doing this. You don't want to burn yourself. So I've chosen colors that go well with each other and won't make muddy colors when you mix them together. So I know that this pink and this blue will make like a kind of a purpley kind of color. And I've got the Mayan glints here to use as an in-between transition color as well. So I'm going to start pouring this embossing powder on. And as you can see, because the iron is really hot, it starts melting pretty much straight away. I would recommend just sort of pouring on a little bit at a time, just to see how much the powder melts. It depends on the iron and the temperatures. So I poured some of the Fuchsia Fusion on one side, and I'm pouring the blue topaz, oh I love this color, on the other side. You don't have to cover the entire iron. It's about playing with the embossing powders and seeing what rates they melt at. So as you can see, that didn't take very long for it to melt down. And I'm pouring some of the Mayan glints in between, just as a sort of transition color. So I'm just gonna let that melt down completely. And if you want, you can sort of tilt your iron to the side to side, just to let the melted embossing powder mix in a bit. And then what you do is you just simply take a piece of card and you swirl your embossing powder onto your tag. And that literally takes a few seconds to melt down. And I've still got a little bit of embossing powder on there that I can do a second tag, but I'm just gonna try and fill in this second bit. And I also want to stress that it's important to work on a non-stick craft sheet. And any of these little bits that you've got on the side that are on your mat, you can just peel them up like that, and you can just place them on your iron and they melt back down again. And I absolutely adore making designs with these. So I'm just scraping up some of these bits just to show you that just melts down really quickly. And any of these bits that are here on the side, you can just cut them off or you can peel them off. Let me just finish this tag and I'll show you how you can easily chop that off. Now I'm just going to set my iron to the side, and that is a super vibrant tag that you've got there ready to use in your projects. And these bits you can just very easily just peel them right off like this. It's not a problem, and you can keep reusing them. So this is, if you can see, I'm just getting a third color there, like a purpley color. This is why it's important to use colors that sort of go well together. Let me just grab a pair of scissors and I just snip that right off. And any of these bits I can just scrape up off my craft mat and I can keep reusing. So I'm just using some of that leftover that I had on my mat that I've scraped off, and just putting it back on my iron. And just for fun, I'm going to add a little bit of the Silver Ultra High onto there. So that was one technique where you sort of swirl your iron onto your surface. What you can do with the next technique is that you can use the iron like a stamp. So instead of swirling it, so what I'm going to do is, let me just get this last bit of excess powder there, let it melt down. With the metallics, I would advise on using very little of it, because otherwise it might overpower the other colors. So, and then all you do is just press down and lift. Press down and then lift. And then just continue working on your surface until you're happy with the design that you have. Just trying to get that final white bit of space there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to speed up the video and just let you guys see me create a variety of different designs.